LG has recently released its latest ultra-wide monitor that comes in at a whopping 49 inches with a 5K resolution. And if this sounds familiar, that's because it's fairly similar to the last 5K 49-inch monitor that we checked out from Dell, which was about a few months ago. And so in this video, we're gonna go over some of my thoughts on LG's version and see if it's worth spending your hard-earned $1,500. Before we get started, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell to get notifications whenever we share a video. Yes, that's right, you heard me correctly. This monitor is $1,500, but if you look at it as essentially buying two QHD 27-inch monitors and then setting them up side by side and then essentially eliminating the bezels, the price becomes a little bit more reasonable. You can actually use this monitor with two different machines, two different MacBooks, a MacBook and a PC, etc. But we're actually gonna focus on how we use this monitor with a single 15-inch 2018 MacBook Pro. Before we get into the monitor's performance and my overall thoughts, it is important to highlight some design elements and features of this monitor. The LG 49WL95C is marketed as a 5K monitor or 5120 by 1440, but it's not going to be a true 5K resolution. Like I said before, you're essentially getting a 32:9 dual QHD setup with a resolution of 2560 by 1440. Basically, LG is banking on the fact that you're going to use this monitor with many windows open at one time, or maybe two full screen apps instead of one app taking over the entire screen, unless you edit videos like I do, in which case it makes a little bit of sense to run Final Cut Pro as one giant application so that you can take advantage of all of the different panels and have a larger timeline view. Now we will touch on this more in just a second, but as far as the rest of the display goes, there is very minimal bezel around the front of the display with an ambient light sensor on top and some pretty loud and beefy 10-watt speakers at the bottom of the monitor. You'll also notice that the controls for this monitor are not at the bottom like they used to be in traditional LG fashion, but instead has been moved to the back right side of the monitor. They're located right above two additional USB Type A ports and a 3.5mm headphone jack. Speaking of ports, the rest of the ports can be found behind this plastic back cover that sort of easily detaches to reveal one USB Type C port that can offer 80-watt charging to your laptop, two HDMI ports, one display port, and two more USB Type A ports. This is also where your power cable will plug into, and one cool side note, LG has found a little bit of room to include the power supply built into the monitor so that the cable does not need to be plugged into a power brick. Just one long cable, which is a nice touch considering that these power bricks can get pretty big and kind of annoying to try to tuck away underneath your desk. Finally, as far as design goes, you do get an arc stand with full tilt, height, and swivel support, and this arc stand is very solid and made up of some durable metal. That's important because the monitor itself is nearly 28 pounds, so there is no worry about that stand being able to support the weight because the stand itself is also very nice and heavy. It's also this weird gold, rose gold color, which I kind of like, but it's a little bit different than the traditional silver look that most of these monitors come with. So as far as actually using the monitor goes, things get a little bit iffy. The screen real estate is great, and there's really no doubt about that, and I really don't think anybody's ever going to have a problem with having all this extra screen real estate. If you use two monitors and really just hate the look of two monitors, going with a massive ultra-wide kind of makes a lot of sense. I also really like being able to stretch out my video editing programs to be able to see all of the things. This monitor is definitely aimed for people who want to increase productivity. Multiple spreadsheets and programs, photo video editors, etc. This is what that monitor is made for. This is not an ideal monitor for gamers, however. Sure, you can absolutely game on it, but if you're a hardcore gamer, you're probably already turned off by the 60 Hz refresh rate, and there's no FreeSync or G-Sync, and it's going to be sort of a deal breaker for you. Color accuracy is pretty good with 100% color accuracy for sRGB, but there is only 80% Adobe RGB, and brightness is around 350 nits, which I would definitely prefer that to be a little bit higher, but again, it's not terrible. Unfortunately, there are quite a few deal breakers depending on how you plan to use this monitor. I think my first deal breaker for me is I would absolutely need a deeper desk. I have two main desks that I use in this office, and both of them are definitely not deep enough. The monitor on the monitor stand and push back up against the wall, it actually does stick out a little bit because of the monitor stand, and it makes a 49-inch monitor pretty close to your face. You're definitely going to need to take a step back just so that you can first off see everything, and also so that the monitor doesn't look kind of bad, which I'll touch on in a minute. If you can't get a deeper desk, mounting it might give you some more space, as the monitor stand would be eliminated from the equation. You can use a VESA mount as the monitor is VESA mount compatible. Finally, if you're a Mac user, more specifically using a MacBook Pro or a MacBook Air, which I also tested with this monitor for this video, you might want to just skip this monitor entirely unless you're okay with using it at 1080p. The maximum resolution I was able to get with either a single USB-C cable or DisplayPort to USB-C was only 3840 by 1080, which does not look great at all on a monitor this big. It's too big to be running 1080p. Losing that vertical resolution does also make a huge difference. The text, UI, and images are not very crisp at all at this resolution, and it's really just not a great experience overall. I also tried using a Thunderbolt 3 dock with a DisplayPort cable or the USB-C cable to my MacBook, but I had no luck there either. I even tried using an external GPU, more specifically the Blackmagic eGPU, and that also did not help with the resolution. There is a small light at the end of the tunnel, however. I do have a 2017 baseline iMac Pro, which is the only other machine I have that's not a 2018 MacBook. I was able to get the 5120 by 1440 resolution to work just fine via the USB-C connection, but the unfortunate part is I have absolutely zero desire to use an iMac Pro and a massive 49-inch monitor on the same desk. My desk is pretty long, even though it's not deep, but there's still barely enough room to fit the 49-inch monitor on top, let alone a 5K iMac right next to it, or an iMac Pro. I don't have a trash can Mac Pro, or obviously the new Mac Pro since it's not out yet, but my guess is that it might work with those machines too, but I don't really know for sure. It would make more sense to use it with one of those machines because you need a display, and you don't already have a much nicer display in the iMac Pro. So if you're a MacBook owner and you're looking to use this monitor, I really can't recommend it. However, I have seen other reports from other users who have claimed that they've also had not been able to get their Mac to work at full resolution. But there have also been people who've had no trouble at all, even with older machines. So it's possible that it could be a graphics driver or other issues specific to certain models that are preventing them from supporting this relatively unusual resolution. Now, if you're a Windows PC user, it's a completely different story. At least it was in the case for my Surface Book 2. If I plug in my Surface Book 2 using the included USB-C cable, the 5120 by 1440 option is available, and it works perfectly fine via the USB-C connection. It's a shame that I haven't been able to fully test out this monitor in apps like Final Cut Pro, Photoshop, Lightroom, etc. on my Mac, as I find I would probably have a different opinion about this overall. But again, I've only been able to use it at 3840 by 1080, and I just have not enjoyed that experience at all. If you have this monitor and somehow got a MacBook Pro, MacBook Air, or really any Mac to work at 5120 by 1440, or you just want to let me know your thoughts on the monitor in general, let me know in the comment section down below. This has been Dan with Mac Rumors. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you around in the next video.